So the last time I talked about Bryan and Rachel, I talked about how Bryan got a divorce coach and was doing a three-part series on YouTube with that divorce coach. I also revealed comments and responses between Bryan and Rachel's close friend, Kevin, who was highly upset that Bryan was bringing this once again to social media. Okay. Well, since then, Bryan, part one of that whole divorce coaching series was released, and I'm going to go ahead and review it. Now, for copyright reasons, I cannot insert the clips in here, but I would just be explaining to you what Bryan talked about and then gave my opinion and all of that. But before we get into part one of the divorce series, here's a short introduction of Bryan and Rachel for those of you who are new here, or for those of you who only watch my housewives and other content and have no clue who Bryan and Rachel is. For those of you who are aware of the story and know who they are, you can just, fast forward to the parts that you feel is relevant to you. Let's get into it.
What's funny is that there's a fan out there, shout out to Vina. She has literally put together like R&B stories from the beginning. And this one says that her voice is so soothing, so she puts on the clips and falls asleep to these clips of our season. It's all actually amazing. She does an amazing job.
What's up, my Vina loves? It's Miss Vina D coming to you over from Vina Entertainment News. If you are aware that Rachel Lindsay was the very first Black Bachelorette, okay? Black Bachelorette, African American Bachelorette, whatever you choose to use. But she made history for being the first Black lead on that show. She married Bryan Apicillo from her season of The Bachelorette, and I used to post about them a lot.
And most of you are aware at this point that after 4 years of marriage and a little over 4 years of being together, Bryan Apicillo filed for divorce a few months ago. So what people expected from Bryan and Rachel was, we get it, sometimes relationships and marriages, they do not work out, and it's okay. But what people expected was Bryan and Rachel were going to release a joint statement and then just leave it all in court and move forward. But so far, Bryan was the one who filed for divorce. Bryan released his own statement separately, then went to court and asked for Rachel to pay him $16,000 a month in spousal support. Rachel was willing to pay $9,000 a month in spousal support. Bryan and his people declined that amount, and the judge ended up awarding him a temporary spousal support in the amount of $13,000 a month. Now, for my reaction to that amount, my breakdown and all of that, please click the links in the description below to watch that video, okay? But after all of that happened, okay, cool. You got your spousal support. Great. You release your statement. Great. You file for divorce. Great. After all of this, Rachel is focusing on work. She's not on a tour doing interviews. Bryan isn't either, but she's not releasing statements. She's not constantly talking about it. She's not doing anything. And even on her podcast or in interviews, when people attempt to ask her, she makes it personal where she's like, I'm taking it day by day. I'm moving forward. She's not giving details, and she's being, it's a private matter. So just when everyone felt like, okay, great, Bryan got his spousal support. Hopefully, he's happy. He can now move out of their marital home and try to put his life back together and all of these different things. And we can now just move on in peace. Bryan posted a collaboration post, meaning for those of you who are not on Instagram, two people can collaborate and post something, and it shows up on that person page and the other person page. And if you look all the way at the top of the image, you will see two circles, and that's Bryan and the other person. This person is a divorce coach. He has a 3-part series coming out surrounding, the conversation of divorce. I'm not sure if Bryan is going to be the center of all 3 parts, but as you can see, one of the images he included in the ad was basically showing that this was recorded in February. I guess Bryan was thinking and a divorce coach, if we show that all of this happened before he even filed the divorce, then it's going to change people's minds. And people in the comments were like, it doesn't matter if you recorded it, 2 years ago. We all know why it was posted. This is an ad, okay? Now, Bryan is an influencer as well. So it's one of those things where you pull up to a hotel, you post the hotel in your Instagram stories and all of that. And depending on the amount of, followers you have, you might get a free stay for doing that, for promoting their hotel, or you might get a discount for promoting their hotel, or someone might send you an entire collection in exchange for you to promote their collection, and it's sending the entire collection for free. So this is exactly the exchange here. Hey, absolutely, I will be a divorce coach. In exchange, you will promote the series that I'm doing, or I would love to have you come on and be a part of one of the series. Also, please, promote and all of that. This is exactly what's happening. Like I said, I do wish Bryan and Rachel the best. This right here is a hot mess, and you already know Bryan was dragged in the comments. And for those of you who watched the last video I did on all of this, Bryan and Rachel's friend Kevin did not play with Bryan, okay? Those comments are on the screen, but if you want to watch it in detail, me reading everything, please click the very first link in the description below to watch that video. Now let's get into my commentary about Bryan divorce series part 1. So Bryan started with how he's been thinking about divorcing Rachel. They were in marriage counseling, and for some time the marriage counseling worked, so he decided to put his thought process and everything about divorcing Rachel on hold. But then things went right back to the way it used to be, and so he decided to seek out a divorce coach, because even though their counselor was amazing when they were in marriage counseling, he wanted to connect himself with someone he felt that had no loyalty to the both of them, and that incentive wasn't in it. Well, Bryan, I'm sure the divorce coaching session, there's an incentive in it. Even if you did not pay him, which I'm sure you paid him, but let's just say you did not pay him, the free promo and everything that you did on your page and all of this, and because you are Bryan and connected to the Bachelorette franchise and Rachel Lindsay, that's his incentive, okay? Because if you go through his video, your video, even though the views are not up there, it did generate more views than majority of the videos on his channel. So that's still an incentive, because you brought more eyes to him and his channel, and that's going to in return be a great investment. And actually, when I went looking for the interview again, because remember it dropped on Saturday last week, so I wanted to listen to it again with a fresh pair of ears to make sure I did not miss anything as I'm recording this a few days later. So I clicked on a video thinking it was the interview. The video have almost 30,000 views. It wasn't the interview. So someone else who reposted it have more views than the actual channel in the actual video. So great investment. Bryan continuing that he felt like he was just existing and that nothing was working in his marriage, and for a long time he just didn't feel like himself. Bryan also said that the reason why he reached out to a divorce coach that have a business, a public business, and a YouTube channel that was creating a series, but he reached out to this divorce coach because he did not want this information leaking out to the press. And now that this is being released with his approval on his own terms, because he knows after everything, there's no going back. He and Rachel are completely over, especially based on certain things Rachel is done. It's not happening because both of them were in the same space. Both of them wanted this, but they were supposed to allegedly do it together. Meaning, absolutely file for divorce separately. We know that, but they were supposed to release a joint statement. But Bryan decided to release one on social media, file for divorce, and then release a statement on Instagram. Yes, Instagram. This was his final power move, okay? If your soon to be ex-wife is paying you $13,000 a month in a temporary order right now, okay? They're still going back and forth in court. That means she clearly makes more than you. And as you continue to listen to my commentary, you will hear Bryan talk about how he felt like things were on her terms, even when it came to them trying to have children and moving and all of that. So this right here was Bryan found a way of saying, you know what, I'm going to make this decision for myself. This is my power move. This is what I want to do. No, I'm not doing a joint statement. Allegedly, I'm going to file for divorce. No, I did not get left. Okay, as most would expect, I filed for divorce. I'm releasing my own personal statement, and I'm going after what I want, because that's what Bryan felt like he had left in the relationship. Because according to him, as you will hear as I keep talking about what he had to say, he said majority of their major decisions or life-changing decisions were up to her. And so maybe there's some insecurities there, and this was his final moment to just do something on his own for himself and not have to release a joint statement with Rachel to save face. This is how I'm feeling, and this is how I'm going to do it on my own terms. And I don't care who are upset. And that's what he went ahead and did. Bryan continued that he felt friend-zoned in his marriage and that they were living separate lives and that their goals and what they wanted out of life no longer aligned. And that's when he knew he had to get out of there and file for divorce. Now, there's a part of the interview where Bryan talked about wanting kids, but other things were made a priority over having kids. Like you now being able to take $13,000 a month from this woman. Yes, the same things that you were complaining about that was made priority. Had she not accepted those jobs and made those things priority, you would now not have $13,000 a month. She was trying to secure her future and the both of you future financially so that when children were involved, you all will be able to take care of those children. How are you as a man and a doctor, a chiropractor who owns his own practice, asking your wife to give you $16,000 a month, but the court awarded you temporarily $13,000 a month? How are you asking her to pay your bills a month, but then also in the same breath complaining that you wanted kids, but other things were made priority when you as a man wasn't in a financial position to help her raise those kids? Because if you were in a financial position to help her raise those kids, you wouldn't be asking her to pay for your moving expenses. And I'm simply repeating things that Bryan listed in his court documents when filing for divorce and asking for spousal support. So I know that I sound like a broken record, but you can't sit on any platform complaining about your soon-to-be ex-wife making other things priority when you as a man, her husband, a provider, needed her money in order for you to be able to move out of the house, when you need her to pay you monthly for you to make ends meet, but yet you wanted the both of you to bring children in this world together when financially you weren't on that level to contribute and help. So now, had you both brought children, she would have had to not only pay you spousal support, but also pay you child support, because the both of you are going to probably be splitting custody. And if the law is willing to give you $13,000 a month with no children, imagine how much they were going to give you a month. So now she have to take care of you and the children, plus pay child support and her own living expenses on top of that.
How is that fair? And then you are complaining that even without children, she was working too much. Well, with your income not matching hers or coming even close, do you know how much more work she would have had to do in order to maintain now not just the both of you lifestyle, but the lifestyle of your children? It would have gotten worse. So with all of the money that she was making, if you couldn't understand what she was doing or step up as a man and say, baby, listen, I understand you have to do all of these things to secure our future, but here's where I'm going to step up as well and do my part so you don't have to work like this. If that means going to work for a more established practice where my degree, experiences, and all of that will lead to a higher income, and then on the weekends and a few days a week in between, after I leave my 9 to 5, I can adjust my hours and open my practice. Since currently my clientele is not on that level, I'm new to the area, I'm still trying to establish. So even though I invested so much money to start my own practice, it's not working out the way that I expected it to work out. So maybe I'm also going to make the adjustments. Now, I'm not saying that Bryan did not do this, but there's no way I'm Dr. Bryan Apostolo. I own my own practice, but yet I still need $16,000 a month from my wife, who I saw grind from the ground up to be here. She wasn't rich when I met her. She took her opportunities. She worked extremely hard, and now we're here. So my point is, you can't complain about not having children, but you did not make your wife feel secure enough that the both of you could bring them in this world and also be able to take care of them. And of course, you don't need to make what Rachel makes in order to have children. We know that. It's common sense. I'm just saying, based on the lifestyle that they became accustomed to due to her income now, okay? Due to her income now, if you by yourself, no kids, need $13K a month, then add Rachel expenses to it. How much do you think that both of you were going to need to take care of children, living where you live and living how the both of you live? So you cannot throw those expectations out there if you are not willing to match your partners. And like I said, Rachel is Rachel, Bryan is Bryan. Their backgrounds are different as in their careers and all of that. So it's possible, of course, Rachel opportunities will be different than Bryan. And that's why I suggested if the practice didn't have enough clients. And without that, you can't really keep your doors open. So no one is saying give up on your dreams. But if you're not even making $50K a year and you have your own practice, but you could make almost 70, 85 to 100K a year working at a more established practice while you work on building your clientele for yours, then make that sacrifice and make that adjustments where, you know what, I can work here a few days a week from this hour to that hour, and then when I leave my job, I go ahead and I open my practice and I do this. Find a way. But you can't be saying in your court documents that you barely even make 10K or 5K a month, yet you have your own practice and you wanted you and your wife to bring children in that financial situation where all of the burden would have been on her financially, and had the stress from all the burden being on her financially had led to a divorce, then she would be paying you not just spousal support, but also child support. And also, who wants to bring children in an unstable environment where both parties are on different pages, arguing and all of that? So move the money situation out of it. The relationship wasn't in a healthy space because on one hand, she's too busy, not enough time being spent together. You miss your wife, but she's out there grinding and all of that, trying to secure your future together. But then that's also drifting you apart. That's where you step in and you step up. Now, let's just say financially, Bryan started doing great. And he said, babe, this is what I did. I went ahead. I have to practice, but I went ahead and I'm doing this. You do not have to work so hard. I got us. Absolutely. Chase your dreams, handle your career and all of that. But if we find something more structured, for example, when she was an extra, and we can just, you know what, this job is going to last for a little bit, this is where we can be, then absolutely. And then she said no, then that's different. But it's clear that Rachel was still out here making things happen, not because, yeah, she have a passion, all of that, the opportunity is there, but because financially she was the breadwinner. She was doing everything. Like I said, I'm only going by what Bryan put out there, okay? He made it seem like in his divorce documents that he had nothing. And then in Rachel's response, she was paying all of the bills, every single one of the bill in her response. And as Bryan waited for her to contribute to his moving expenses and all of that, Rachel said she was paying everything while Bryan lived there for free. I'm just going by their paperwork now. Believe who you want to believe. So I'm not coming for Bryan. I'm not going at him. It's what both parties included in their documents that I'm going by. Now, there's a part of the interview that Bryan said, especially during this, and then it completely cut out. And then Bryan said, that was a very sad moment. I don't like that they did that. Don't leave things like that for speculations. Now you have people speculating, was Rachel pregnant? Did she have a miscarriage? And all of these insensitive comments and different things. If you're going to cut it, just completely cut it. Don't do it that way where you have people guessing. Now, this wasn't a cliffhanger for part 2. No, he said it in the midst of the interview while answering other questions after he said that. So this wasn't, oh, let's leave them with something to come back for part 2 of the divorce series. No. So that's why I'm saying, if you're going to say especially during, and then it's completely cut out, Bryan bows his head like he's having a sad moment. And then he says, yeah, that was difficult. And then move on to the next subject. This is not a cliffhanger, like I said, to, come back and watch part 2. Then it's like you're leaving a space for speculation. And if something that serious happened and you said to the divorce coach, you know what, maybe that is too insensitive to share on a YouTube platform, that should stay between the two of us, then completely remove it. Don't put especially during this to cause speculation. And also the reason why people are even speculating that he said that was terrible, that was hard, especially seeing her sadness. Now, I'm aware that Rachel lost her grandmother a little over a month ago. May her soul rest in peace. A month or a few months ago. But Rachel shared that information on social media. So I don't think that's what Bryan was referring to, saying that especially losing her grandmother and then me having to hit her with divorce papers in the midst of that. What he said and the way how he said it is the reason why people are not thinking he's talking about her grandmother. Because also what Bryan doesn't want to happen is people saying, oh, you're using her grandmother's death as a talking point. So it also makes sense that he will remove that. But it's not a hidden information, is on social media. So that's why people are thinking the part that was removed was really personal and it should have been completely removed and not left up to people's imagination to come up with their own theory. Like I said, it wasn't about her grandmother because Bryan then said it felt like I was filling expectations on every front and that Rachel had to go deeper into work to cope with what happened, and that led to an unhealthy communication. Bryan said the time they spent together was so limited that there was a moment there where he only knew what his wife was doing because of what she posted on Instagram. And to that, I say, what? Because they really stopped posting a lot. Like, they cut back on posting, and it was every now and again Rachel would post something, but that's what he's saying. He said they were so distant and their communication was so terrible that he found out what she was doing and vice versa via Instagram. And he said when he filed for divorce, his priority in that moment was to protect his mental health and relieve the pressure. So it didn't matter Rachel's mental health, what she thought, what she felt, nothing. Since nothing was changing, he had to look out for himself, which I understand, and protect his mental health. And then Bryan said, unlike you, Mr. Divorce Coach, someone at the court leaked it. You really thought to file for divorce and your Rachel Lindsay husband, and it wasn't going to get leaked? Come on now. There's a segment at the end of the interview where Bryan said that they had already moved twice before they moved to LA. Once was him moving to her, and then she moved to Miami. So they both supported each other. You went to Texas. She went to Miami with you, where you already were, and then the both of you moved to LA. He started a practice in LA. Based on what he listed in his court documents, you can clearly see that financially, the practice isn't doing well. So when Bryan consistently talk about, I keep shutting down my practices or businesses to support her dreams and move with her, you're able to do that, sir, because it is not successful on that level. There's absolutely no way you had a very successful, making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in Miami, and Rachel Lindsay, in as much as she loves you and wanted to be with you all the time, there's no way she was going to be like, yeah, sure, you have to pack up your millions of dollars business and follow me to a brand new state where we're not even sure how my career is going to turn out. The reason why when she got this opportunity in New York and you almost packed up and parked your practice, like you said, to go with her again, is clearly not making money. And that's the reason why she even accepted the financial opportunity in New York, where Bryan said he's very happy that it did not go through. And that might sound selfish, but that would have meant he would have had to park his practice in LA again to follow her dreams. Sir, you're not parking successful practices, and you both been in LA for a while now. So if it's been a few years and the practice is not making money, then your wife have to go and make the money, because without the money, then the livelihood is not there. That's the livelihood that got you the $13,000 a month right now, because she had to keep going and grinding. If the practice was successful and you had the clientele, she probably would not have accepted the role in New York. And if the practice was successful and she's still following her dreams and accepted a role in New York, the both of you could have still made it work. But the practice is not making the money that you expected it to make. And I hope in the future you will get the clientele and you will become successful. But if it was successful, you will not be getting $13K a month and needing her to give you that money to move. What man with a successful practice is complaining in divorce paperwork, saying that the both of you live in the same space is uncomfortable and you need to move, but you cannot move out of your marital home because you cannot afford it? So this whole thing about, oh, he left his practices for her, he loved her so much, he abandoned everything, they were not successful. And that's why he went with her. And I do pray and hope that Bryan will get on that level where his practices become successful. This is not shade, but it's like people are behaving like his life was set. He had these successful practices making millions of dollars, and Rachel Lindsay is his downfall. If he was making millions of dollars, he would have been able to afford his own moving expenses and did not have to file paperwork to ask the judge for some of the money that Rachel has made all of these years just for him to be able to move and pay his own rent and all of that. He needed money from Rachel to do that, meaning the opportunity in New York would have continued to provide them the current lifestyle that they are living. This whole, I was about to park my practice again and go with her. The practice wasn't working out, sir. And that's why she probably accepted the position to help the both of you financially. Once again, before anyone thinks I'm being shady saying he wasn't parking, those are Bryan Ward's successful practices. This is what Bryan Abasolo submitted to the court, okay? Because I'm not coming for this man. He submitted that he makes $1,600 a month from his practice and $330 from a rental property. Even though these are the paperwork that Bryan is submitting to the court, he then claims his expenses is $18,900. So if you're only making $1,600 a month from this practice that you would have had to park again and follow Rachel's dreams, and $330 from a rental property, $18,900 monthly expenses. Bryan said that his rent was $6,500 a month. The groceries was $1,500. $500 in clothes and various other bills, okay? And then he listed his assets. Basically what Bryan is saying, because Rachel was making more money, that's how Rachel wanted to live. And as her husband, he had to abide by that. And now that they are no longer together, he doesn't deserve to live below that. He needs to maintain that way of living. So me saying unsuccessful, that's not shade. Financially, it wasn't successful because $1,600 a month cannot sustain you. You can say allegedly Bryan hid his money. Bryan is lying. There's no way he have his own practice and only makes $1,600 a month. I'm just going by the documents. This is what Bryan wants us to believe. So since he wants us to believe that he makes no money and it's just $1,600 in LA, that's nothing. So then I'm going to believe what Bryan wants us to believe and say that his business is not financially successful, because it's not. Once everything is finalized, maybe Bryan will move out of LA, because now he's currently getting $13,000 a month. We shall see if it's going to increase or decrease once everything is finalized and he can move back somewhere affordable to be able to keep some of the money. But I don't blame Rachel wanting to accept a job in New York if you're only making $1,600 a month. And as far as had they spent more time together and have the children, they wouldn't be here right now. No, they would still be here if Bryan finances was and is like this. Because if they are spending almost $20,000 a month and Bryan is not matching her financially, how much do you think a month extra they were going to spend with children? And who would have had to go out there and work extra hard to make sure everything was covered, because her career is stationed at the time in LA. Now she can move around if New York comes around and calling again, but for now it was stationed in LA. So they would have still been having issues, arguing, disagreement, not enough time with the kids, I'm doing everything. It would have still been here. You have to find a balance, and you have to find a healthy balance and compromise. There's more to life than money, but I hope you all are following me. My focus is not the money, her money, his money. My focus is, if there's already struggle, right, because of scheduling conflicts and you're not here, not enough time, but it's very expensive to live in LA. And then the both of you have a lifestyle that is up there, meaning you have to maintain a certain level of income to afford that lifestyle. Even if you're not within Rachel's tax bracket, it is still very expensive to live in LA. So all I'm saying is that it would have still been a problem with getting these different jobs to make ends meet because her husband's income isn't matching, and the arguments would have still been there. And also resentment played a factor. I followed her. Her career is taking off. I'm gonna be making $1,600 in my practice. All of those things play a factor. But I will say it is a success in itself for you to say, this is what I want to do in my life, and still have the courage to go out there and do it. That in itself is a success. And with time and his clientele increasing and Bryan keep going, he will get there. I'm just keeping it strictly financial, okay? On the financial level, it's not there. And Rachel was pulling majority of the weight. But I do wish both Bryan and Rachel the best. You heard in the beginning, it was Bryan who shouted me out, who said my name. I support the both of them. This is a difficult situation to watch two people that you support and all of that go through this. But I do wish the both of them the best. I'm wishing all of you well and take care.
Thank you all for your love and support. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up. Also turn notifications so when I do post, you're aware that I posted. And I will see you all in the comment section. Remember to always have the God bless attitude, which is being positive at all times and seeing the good in every situation. Have a great day, guys. God bless.